Hello, 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 hello. We have sound. We have sound. I will not touch the mic this time. Good morning. This is part two. The other one, the sound went out in the middle of my story. So if you're coming on right now, this is Exodus 16, part two. We'd already done our little introduction. We shared or we prayed. I did a little housekeeping chit chat about this week. And then I went into a story about Domino's coming to do a dough show. Somehow I touched my mic and it made the sound go away. It was so weird because it didn't do anything to the connection. So, anyways, we're going to start back up with I'm not exactly sure where it went out, and I won't spend too much time on my gratitude, but it also goes along with what just happened and really goes along with the message for today. So, I'm just going to roll with it and share just basically the lesson I got from that because so Domino's Pizza, they didn't show up at the first school. Super bummed, frustrated, talking to the girl on the phone. I kind of wanted to be mean, but I'm not really even a mean person, but I wanted her to know like how disappointed I was, but also it's not her fault. And at the same time, I mean, things happen. I dropped the ball a lot. So I don't mean to drop the ball, but I get my hands involved in a lot of stuff. And I don't always do the things that I'm supposed to do. So I try to be very grace giving when it comes to that. And I still want these people to show up and do a dough show. So I'm not going to act like a mean person or like, yell at them or whatever. Like what would that solve? And what would it wouldn't accomplish anything. And it really would just make me look like a fool. So, um, so anyways, we go to the second school. The people show up. They weren't even like the people that are supposed to do the dough show because those people were out of town, but they were willing to do it for me anyways. And it went great. It was wonderful. It was fantastic. The kids were so engaged. They loved it so much. I can't rave enough about our Dominoes willing and doing this for the public schools, daycares, Head Starts, all of that stuff. So if you work with a group of kids, look into this. Just make sure you have a plan B. Well, the girl from the other location messaged and she just completely like apologized for all of it and is setting up a future date. And so I'm excited. It all worked out, but it was one of those things that because my morning set up like that where things didn't go what I wanted them to, and honestly it was a little bit of a pride thing. I was kind of embarrassed because I had made such a big deal out of this to the teachers and to the directors and even parents that were walking through that morning when me and the girl that runs the location was talking about it. Like the parents were like, "Oh my gosh, that sounds so cool. I hope y'all do this every year." So it was a little bit of a hit on my pride. I was kind of embarrassed, like it didn't work out. But then for me to just be like, I'm not going to let that. There was a moment where I was going to let it ruin my day. I came home, I started editing a podcast, and there was no sound on the whole second half of the podcast. And I'm like, where is this girl's sound at that I had was for about the parental alienation? And I'm like, this is a good message that needs to get out. Like, what the heck? Why did it mess up? And then I remembered her internet had dropped. And so I had two different sound bites that I had to splice together. And so, anyways, I'd stood up in frustration, like, why is this happening to me today? And Riley was in the other room, like doing some stuff with her music. And she's like, what is going on? And I was like, going like this, like circling the kitchen, like, I'm so frustrated. And then, because I was also supposed to record a podcast, but the girl's child was sick, which I'm the one that told her, no, take care of your kid. But it just felt like one thing after another wasn't working out the way that I wanted it to. And okay, good. Allison's on and she sees me now. So things just it kept happening and happening. And then I stopped. And then, because I told in that moment of frustration, I was like, God, I know that you can fix this problem. I know that you can fix this problem. And it really wasn't even a problem. It was, I had forgot. I even remembered when I started uploading the stuff into where I edit, and I was like, I'm just going to wait and put the second part of the sound in until I get to that point so I'm not confused. And then how quickly I forget and start grumbling and complaining, right? This really goes perfectly with what we're reading today. And so I'm going to get started reading here in just a second. But I'd chosen that moment to seek God. He reminded me. So I sat back down, got it all edited. and everything worked out good. Went to the daycare, show turned out good. Message at the end of the night, because I even told the Lord, I was like, Lord, I really want the other locations to experience what the kids experienced today, because this was so fantastic. And the girl, she messaged and she worked it out, and they're going to come at the beginning of December. So all is well. But it took me whining, complaining, grumbling, and having to go through this little process and seek God before I could get my mindset back right. And that's what we're going to see happen today with the Israelites in Exodus 16. Really, it's a pattern that they have in all that they do. But I think we do too as humans. It's so natural for us to quickly forget how much God is doing for us all day long as He is providing for us. And so that's the same thing with this morning and the sound going out. Like, I didn't want to necessarily wake up early this morning. I could have slept in because the Doe show got canceled yesterday at that location. We went ahead and I had to tell the other location in that same town, sorry, it's not going to happen. So she's like, go ahead and just stay home today. We don't have that many kids here. So I could have slept in, and I'm already like, I could have slept in, but I'm waiting. I got up because I need this. I need this for today. And I love the fact that I have you guys as my accountability partners. So I make it happen. Whereas if I didn't have this, I would sleep in and I wouldn't read the word and I wouldn't be prepared for what's to come. I mean, even the healing message yesterday, a little boy, the daycare that I go to, they're not necessarily a Christian daycare, but they practice Christian beliefs. I mean, they are believers. And so they say prayer and they teach lessons and listen to Christian music and all of that kind of stuff. So after our healing message yesterday, I go in and this little boy, one of the 4-year olds, he's like, my arm hurts. I was like, come here, dude, come here. I got something for you. And I touched his hand or his arm and I was like, your arm is feeling better. Your body is starting to feel better. You don't feel pain, because we can ask for healing in our body and God heals us. And so I like kind of said it like that. And then the girl in there, she's like, in Jesus' name. And I'm like, here we are in this 4-year-old classroom, just speaking healing over his arm. So when we put this in, this is what comes out as well. And so we do it. We show up. We keep showing up, even when things are not quite working. We restart, do it again. So here we go. Exodus 16, manna and quail from heaven. Then the whole community of Israel set out from Elam and journeyed to the wilderness of Sin. And it has a little study note of sin, because then you might be reading it and be like, oh, is that like a metaphor, that something else of what they're going to do? But it actually is like for Sinai. It's like a shorter condensed version. At least that's what my study notes say. It's between Elam and Mount Sinai. They arrived there on the 15th day of the second month, 1 month after leaving the land of Egypt. There too, the whole community of Israel complained about Moses and Aaron. If only the Lord had killed us back in Egypt. Are they a little dramatic or what? Have you experience that? Have you ever been in so much pain that you're like, Lord, just take me now? Because it's painful either physically or mentally. So that's what's happening here. There, we sat around, trying not to touch my cord, sat around pots filled with meat and ate all the bread we wanted. But now you have brought us into the wilderness to starve us all to death. Then the Lord said to Moses, look, I'm going to rain down food from heaven for you. Each day, the people can go out and pick up as much food as they need for that day. I need you to be a visual learner right now. I don't know if when someone else reads that you have like a picture in your mind of what's taking place, but I want you to visualize this, and I want you to visualize you and your family sitting out there and doing this and being the Israelites and being the complainers. I think it makes it a little bit more personal like that. Think of which kids would be sitting there like whining and complaining the most, right? So he says, look, I'm going to rain down the food from heaven for you. Each day, the people go out and pick up as much food as they need for that day. I will test them in this to see whether or not they will follow my instructions. On the sixth day, they will gather food. And when they prepare it, there will be twice as much as usual. So he's already preparing them for the Sabbath. Now, what we're going to read here in a minute, it's going to sound like they're just saying the same thing over and over because they kind of are saying the same thing over and over. But it's really going to stick in our head, and we're going to know Exodus 16 because of this. So Moses and Aaron said to all the people of Israel, by evening you will realize it was the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt. In the morning you will see the glory of the Lord. So picture you and maybe your spouse you're talking to, even your extended family, your parents, your grandparents, your children. They're all sitting out there grumbling and complaining, and you have the good news from your father because you stay connected to him. And so now he has told you this message, so you're going and sharing this message with them. In the morning, you will see the glory of the Lord because he has heard your complaints, which are against him, not against us. What have we done that you should complain about us? Then Moses added, the Lord will give you meat to eat in the evening and bread to satisfy you in the morning, for he has heard all your complaints against him. What have we done? Yes, your complaints against the Lord, not against us. So you're reminding them you're not the problem here. Then Moses said to Aaron, announce this to the entire community of Israel. Present yourself before the Lord, for he has heard your complaints. And as Aaron spoke to the whole community of Israel, so Aaron is still being the spokesman here, they looked out toward the wilderness. There they could see the awesome glory of the Lord in the cloud. Then the Lord said to Moses, I have heard the Israelites' complaints. Now tell them, in the evening you will have meat to eat, and in the morning you will have all the bread you want. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God. That evening, vast numbers of quails flew in and covered the camp. And the next morning, the area around the camp was wet with dew. When the dew evaporated, a flaky substance as fine as frost blanketed the ground. The Israelites were puzzled when they saw it. I would probably be kind of confused too. What is it? They asked each other. They had no idea what it was. And Moses told them, it is the food the Lord has given you to eat. These are the Lord's instructions. Each household should gather as much as it needs. This, I think, is so symbolic, not only of like the financial provision or the like the okay, I touched the cord, and the tangible provision that we need from the Lord, but also like as I was reading it, I was thinking about the fruit of the spirit that we need from the Lord every single day, and how God doesn't give it to us to overflow from days to come, but he gives us exactly what we need for that day to be able to sustain us and hand out for that day. And so I just found that as a little correlation as I was reading. Pick up 2 quarts for each person in your tent. So the people of Israel did as they were told. Some gathered a lot, some only a little, but when they measured it out, everyone had just enough. Those who gathered a lot had nothing left over, and those who gathered only a little had enough. Each family had just what they needed. Then Moses told them, do not keep any of it until morning. But some of them didn't listen and kept some of it until morning. That was not a good idea. They were being stingy. But by then it was full of maggots and had a terrible smell. Moses was very angry with them. After this, the people gathered the food morning by morning, each family according to its need. And as the sun became hot, the flakes that they had not picked up melted and disappeared. On the 6th day, they gathered twice as much as usual, 4 quarts for each person instead of 2. Then all the leaders of the community came and asked Moses for an explanation. He told them, this is what the Lord commands. Tomorrow will be a day of complete rest, a holy Sabbath day set apart for the Lord. So bake or boil as much as you want today and set aside what is left for tomorrow. So this is where the Sabbath is coming into play. I think one other time I think like when the world was created, right? He made it all in 6 days and he rested on the 7th, and now he is also preparing that for the people as well, getting them into that habit. So they put some aside until morning, just as Moses had commanded. And in the morning, the leftover food was wholesome and good, without maggots or odor. That is good. Moses said, "Eat this food today, for today is a Sabbath day dedicated to the Lord. There will be no food on the ground today. You may gather the food for 6 days, but the seventh day is the Sabbath. There will be no food on the ground that day." He is like drilling in this point. I am giving you everything you need for tomorrow today, and just letting that sink in as just as far as the Sabbath. And we're going to read a little bit here in the Bible recap in just a second as she kind of like brings the point home right there. But I am guilty, very guilty, Randall, as well. We have not honored the Sabbath in the way that we know that we are supposed to. We have stressed and worried about work and use the day that God has given us. This isn't a day that, and that's where we get so confused. The Sabbath is not for us to make God feel more holy and powerful. God truly created the Sabbath because he knows we need to be able to rest. It is for us to be able to get refilled and ready for what is to come the following week. And we get it so backwards. So some of the people went out anyways on the seventh day. Shake my head. But they found no food. The Lord asked Moses, "How long will these people refuse to obey my commands and instructions? They must realize that the Sabbath is the Lord's gift to you." Hey, I just said that. That is why he gives you a 2-day supply on the sixth day, so there will be enough food for 2 days. On the Sabbath day, you must eat. You must each stay in your place. Do not go out or pick up food on the seventh day. So the people did not gather any food on the seventh day. We're almost done. I promise. We're at 31. The Israelites called the food manna. It was white like coriander seeds, and it tastes like honey wafers. Then Moses said, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Fill a 2-quart container with manna to preserve for your descendants. Then later generations will be able to see the food that I gave you in the wilderness when I set you free from Egypt." What? Oh, she said it froze. Am I still frozen? This is very frustrating when it comes to technology. Okay, I'm going to keep reading because I'm not frozen on my end. And I'll go back and see what the heck happened after this because we were really close to the end. Let me know, Allison, if yours came back. So Moses said to Aaron, "Get a jar, fill it with 2 quarts of manna, then put it in a sacred place before the Lord to preserve it for all future generations." Aaron did just as the Lord had commanded Moses. He eventually placed it in the Ark of the Covenant in the front of the stone tablet and inscribed it with the terms of the covenant. So the people of Israel ate manna for 40 years until they arrived at the land where they would settle. They ate manna until they came to the border of the land of Canaan. The container used to measure the manna was an omer, which was 1/10 of the ephah. It held about 2 quarts. So she hasn't come back on yet. So I wonder if that means nothing has changed. Technology, people, so frustrating. But I'm still waiting. But we see here this is us, right? Like God is providing all of our needs for us. But as soon as our tummy starts to grumble, as soon as the bank account starts to go down, as soon as one of our appliances break down or things aren't going as we think, then immediately we go back into grumbling stage about what's taking place. And I mean, I probably could have saved the Sabbath part for tomorrow and broke that up, and then it wouldn't be so much because I think that's a whole topic in itself. But we will definitely be getting more into Sabbath as we continue to read through the Bible. So just know and start making it a habit of trying and asking God, "Help me to be able to rest on the Sabbath. Help me to use this day for what you created it, even before you actually like honor it the way that it should be." So I'm not going to read all of what Tara Lee Coble, this is the Bible recap, just in case you haven't ever seen me read from it yet. This is what we're using as our chronological order. And I like to read her stuff so that I can also have another insight. It talks about he says to gather manna every day except the Sabbath, which is the Hebrew name for the seventh day of the week, what we call Saturday, which is interesting because I mean, that's what our calendar looks like, but we always think Monday through Sunday and not Sunday. So Sunday through Saturday, um, which is the Hebrew name for the seventh day of the week, which we call Saturday. God is testing for potential pitfalls in their thought life. Will I have a scarcity mentality and try to hoard the manna, or will I trust it will be there again tomorrow? Am I willing to work twice as hard to gather on Friday? That's the important part. They're working double. They're having to gather twice as much. So, even in my mindset, or how, like I was saying, Randall and I, we continue to work even on days that we should be resting, but we put in the extra work and plan and prepare it ahead of time and then trust that it's going to be enough when we stop and rest the other day. Am I willing to work twice as hard to gather on Friday in order to rest on Saturday? Will the food I gather on Friday be enough to carry me through Sunday morning? Will God keep his promise to provide for me if I stop to rest as he commanded? And at this point, God hasn't given them the 10 commandments yet, but he is hinting to the idea of resting on the Sabbath since creation. So these are some very valid questions to just really ask yourself. Okay, Allison is sending me. Allison, I should hire you as like my tech side person to let me know when things are not. It finally came back. Whew. Okay. So I just read those questions, Allison. I don't know if you missed all of them. I don't know if everybody missed all of them. If I go back and listen to this and I was frozen for like since verse 30 and I've just been sitting here talking to myself, then tomorrow I'll pick back up at verse 30 and I'll continue on from there and we'll talk more deeply on Sabbath just because I was already like almost 10 minutes in, I think, on my other video, and it's already 22 minutes now. I know people have to go to work. So, I don't want to keep anybody, but I'll go back and listen to that because those questions, and maybe I'll even bring those questions back up tomorrow because those questions are very valid. You know what? I'm going to put those questions in prayers from a mom as well. So if you're on here and you're not in our private Facebook group, then message me. Allison, I know I had requested you on there. So I think you're on there now. I haven't checked to like actually see that you accepted it. But I'll put those questions just to kind of get things stirring as well. And even to drag it home, I may read them while we pray in here to help us to get focused on what the Lord is doing. So if y'all will pray with me now. Father, man, I just thank you you're here. Even in the technology glitches, your message is still being heard, Lord. Your voice is piercing the hearts of your children that are listening. And Lord, as we are a group of people, a society that is so blessed, and we take so many things for granted. And Lord, as we read about the Israelites and the trust that they had to have in you, the dependency that they had to have on you, it really makes us just stop and think about how much do we really depend on you, Lord. When we live in a society that everything is at our fingertips, do we stop and seek you in all that we need? And we want to be a group of people that get what we need from you every single day. Lord, I think of the fruits of the Spirit and that you give us just what we need every single day to be able to pour out to those around us, and that we can't expect that we go to church on a Sunday morning and get filled up and that that's going to sustain us all week long to be able to live out the giftings that you have given us inside of us, because we're human and life happens and we begin to grumble and complain. But Lord, that's why you call us to come to you. And every morning we come to you and you fill us up like we are right now. It sustains us for that day to hand out what needs to be given out. You are our energy. You are our source. You are our provider for all of our needs. So, Lord, I ask us these questions again. And I just ask that you convict us, not condemn us, but convict us in the areas that we need to begin to lean on you and trust you better? Will I have a scarcity mentality and try to hoard the manna? Or I'm going to say, do I? Or do I trust it will be there again tomorrow? So, do I have a scarcity mentality? And am I willing to work twice as hard? I'm messing it up. Do I have a scarcity mentality and try to hoard the manna? Or do I trust it will be there again tomorrow? Am I willing to work twice as hard to gather on Friday in order to rest on Saturday? Will the food I gather on Friday be enough to carry me through Sunday? Do I trust that, Lord, through Sunday morning? Will God keep his promise to provide for me if I stop to rest as he had commanded? These things, as they challenge us, Lord, just convict our hearts as we go about our day. That do we trust you in this way? Let us see Sabbath in a way that we've never seen Sabbath before, especially during this holiday season where we're given special days off to be with our family. Do we fill it up with work and meaningless tasks and all the things that we think need to be done? Or do we take some time to enjoy the people we're with? Do we take some time to rest? Do we take some time to be in connection with you? And as you convict us, Lord, and we know better, we begin to do better, and you give us exactly what we need. And I pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So, oh, good. Allison said it recorded everything. Allison, can I just take a second and let you know how much I appreciate you? I mean, truly, I would probably have still been sitting here talking with no volume. Every once in a while, I glance down and I see the little green lines, and that tells me I'm going. But they're so tiny that I don't pay attention. Would be I truly appreciate you showing up live every morning and texting me and letting me know when things are not going right. I love you guys. We're going to be back on tomorrow morning, God willing, and we will do Exodus 17, which I love Exodus 17. Exodus 17 is when water comes from the rock, and my favorite worship song is about the honey from the rock and the water from I think it's the water from the rock too, but that's like my favorite worship song right now, especially if you need provision. That one just gets my mindset right on who God is. And so we'll read that one tomorrow and then we'll take a break for Thanksgiving. Love you guys.